On Saturday night, the comedian Ramy Youssef.
He has a show on Hulu, which is specifically about his Muslim American identity in the United States. It's really good. And he's been recently in the film Poor Things, which Emma Stone just won Best Actress for. So he's having a bit of a moment career-wise. And as a comic, I'd imagine that hosting SNL was probably a pretty big deal for him.
Big deal.
But he chose to use this as an opportunity, to do this. And that's...
I'm curious.
Well, he was a Mr. Robot as well.
Just good for him.
I am curious as to how much, if he took any grief. I'm curious as to how planned this was, because usually, there's been things in the past. People remember when Sinead O'Connor ripped up a picture of the Pope. I mean, they actually cut it out of the West Coast presentation of Saturday Night Live. There's a history of people doing unplanned things in this segment. I wonder if he actually, if they signed off on this.
Me too.
But either way, Trita Parsi makes a good point. Like, you listen to the response to this, it really is indicative of just how out of touch he says Biden. I would agree, Biden way out of touch in terms of the implications of this, although he seems hell-bent regardless of the political implications. But I can tell you also, for huge swaths of the country, ranging from like the Kufi Christian Zionist people, but they live in their own universe. But there are segments of, even like the East Coast elites who seem completely oblivious. They're maybe terrified at the notion of like what's happening at, Brown. There's supposedly anti-Semitism and, 4 protesters at a college. But broadly speaking, across the board, the American public does not like, and I'm not saying they're hugely engaged in this issue, but does not like the fact that we as a country are enabling this ethnic cleansing, this genocide, according to experts,
and our eyes and ears,
and the starvation that we are at the very least not exercising our leverage to stop. And here is Ramy Youssef with his opening remarks on SNL. This is usually the comedy monologue that happens. There may have been some of that, but here is this segment. Listen to the applause.
So that night, I go to pray, and my prayers are complicated. I've got a lot to fit in. I'm like, God, please help Ahmed's family. Please stop the suffering, stop the violence. Please free the people of Palestine, please. Please. And so that night.
So huge, overwhelming applause. Meanwhile,
I just also want to say the lead up to that bit, too, in his monologue was him talking about how he's one of the only religious members of his friends, and they're always asking him to pray for them. And his first friend asks him to pray for if he can get custody of his dog in his breakup with his girlfriend. And his other friend says, half my family's in Gaza. And he said the word Gaza. And he said, that's why he said, my prayers are complicated. Basically, who do I prioritize? So that was the bit in that situation. But he said the words free Palestine.
Yep.
And the crowd cheered.
Big time.
It's all good, just good for him for using that opportunity. And he's been vocal on it. Ceasefire pins everywhere in this Oscar season because his film has been, he's been a part of the film that's been so well reviewed and nominated. So I don't know. It's just there's a lot of people who are refusing to say anything. Anybody who says anything in support of Palestinians got to be, give them a pat on the back.
Even the guy who made a movie about the Holocaust, who got attacked.
He's a Jewish man.
Yes, who got attacked for saying, don't exploit the Holocaust or my Judaism for your genocide. That he got attacked for. Meanwhile, what you don't hear as much from these people who are so worried about the rampant anti-Semitism that's going on is them complaining about someone like Michigan Representative Tim Walberg, talking about essentially, let's stop messing around and let's just do genocide in such an explicit fashion that we're not getting any type of debate on it. This is Representative Tim Walberg in Michigan at a town hall in Dundee, Michigan. It's a little bit tough to hear what he says, but we can. I'll read it. This is a voice of a constituent. Why are we spending our money to build a port for them? Them being the Palestinians in Gaza. And here's how Walberg responds.
Why are we spending our money to build a port for them? Yeah,
It's
Joe Biden's reason.
It's Joe Biden's
We
reason.
need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza.
We need to get humanitarian aid into Gaza. I don't think we should.
I don't think any of our aid that goes to Israel to support our greatest ally, arguably maybe.
I don't think any of our aid that goes to Israel to support our greatest ally, to defeat Hamas in Iran and Russia.
Probably North Korea's in there and China too, with them and helping Hamas.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to make it clear what he said there. This money that we're given to defeat Hamas in Iran and Russia, and probably North Korea is in there, and China too.
And Satan and Beelzebub and that guy that gave me a wet willy in 4th grade. They're all tied
Everybody's
together.
there. Everybody is there.
This is that Tucker Carlson libertarian anti-war stuff, which is why is our money going toward this? Like, no, why are we doing a farce?
Well, notice how the constituent doesn't ask, why do we give over $3 billion in military aid to Israel a year? Why are we wasting our money on supporting this colonial settler ethno-state? No, it's why are we giving like some millions to not really do much, but to give a tiny drop in the bucket of aid so people don't starve to death. You could just see it's just racism.
I mean, if you really wanted to be frugal about this, you could say, let's save the money on the weapons to convince the Israelis to allow trucks to go through.
Right.
And to convince them to stop killing all the people who are organizing the trucks once they get there. And then we could save money on the port and on the weapons.
True.
We could incentivize them that way. But I also got to say the idea that North Korea is in there helping Hamas is a little bit of a stretch.
You know who was helping Hamas more than North Korea? Benjamin Netanyahu, by explicitly allowing for money to be funneled to Hamas for years and years, because deeming Palestinians as terrorists was very helpful for him politically.
Well, to be fair, he would also wear a North Korean military uniform when he would authorize those things. So, all right, continue. Oh.
Arguably maybe in the world, to defeat Hamas and Iran and Russia. Probably North Korea's in there and China too, with them and helping Hamas. We shouldn't be spending a dime on humanitarian aid. It should be like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Get it over quick.
Okay, now, to be fair, he said at the end there, let's just go down there so I can read the exact quote. He said, we shouldn't be spending a dime on humanitarian aid. It should be like Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Get it over quick. Now, to be fair to him, once he found out that this was recorded, he did say that was a metaphor. Now, here's the thing about a metaphor. When you're deploying a metaphor, you usually don't want every other element of what you're comparing it to be exactly the same. So, in other words, when he said dropping a nuclear weapon or a bomb on Gaza, it should be like we should drop a nuclear weapon on Gaza. Was not a metaphor for anything other than we should drop a nuclear weapon on Gaza. Now, he could be saying like, no.
Different bomb.
I meant conventional weapons that would kill as many people and then get it over with. But here's the fun fact. They could kill hundreds of thousands in Gaza, and it's still not clear that they would achieve their military aim any more so than what they seem to be saying it is now. And that is what it appears to have been at this point. Like the idea of like completely eliminating Hamas To a large extent, they have eliminated Hamas's military infrastructure, at least on some level. Like, I don't see reports of rockets heading over into Israel in the way that we saw in the first couple of weeks of this. But the idea that you're going to kill and eliminate the idea of we need a sovereign, we need sovereignty over ourselves, or I have some resentment towards the Israelis because they've killed my entire family, or they've killed my neighbor's entire family, or I have resentment for the Israelis because they eliminated 60 to 80% of the housing where we live. Or I have resentment to the Israelis because my children are permanently going to be dealing with the malnutrition or the psychic trauma that they have suffered. There's no number of Palestinians that you can kill to make that go away. That's not going away. You don't get to, now, Israel does have the ability, or certainly has exercised the ability in the past, to fashion the nature of the liberation movement that it wants to deal with. That's why it grew Hamas by both allowing aid to come in there, but also back in the 80s by constraining Fatah in areas that it wouldn't constrain Hamas, and allowed them to grow because they want to undercut any type of Palestinian solidarity, so that as a political project, they would undermine any type of liberation project amongst the Palestinians by creating different factions. So I don't know what Israel's going to do now in terms of, like, are they going to go back and be supportive of a secular movement as opposed to one that is born out of the Muslim Brotherhood? The fact is, they're not going to be able to kill what they want to kill, which is the desire for people to have some control over the destiny of their lives.
Well, they're just trying to kill as many Palestinians as they can in this time period. Like, the death tolls, I was just thinking about this morning. 30,000, 31, 32,000 has been where we've been at for, 6 weeks at this point. And that wasn't even counting the people unaccounted for under rubble, which was thousands. And then malnutrition has been set in, and we've been seeing the complete siege on Al-Shifa and reports of summarial executions, and then killing of Palestinians and drone footage of then bulldozers burying their bodies so that they can't be found. We are going to be at extremely high death toll levels. I don't want to speculate now because that would be irresponsible. But the point is that they are, I think, trying to hide and conceal, and that's in big part of destroying the hospitals too, where they do the counting. They're trying to conceal the true death toll until it's too late. And until they can kill as many before the international community sees. And so, like, the New York Times and some of these Western papers that keep using this procedural wartime language of, like, the Rafah offensive and the strategic military objective of defeating Hamas. Really, all you're doing is laundering this and biding time as we continue to see how is it possible that we're not past 32,000 when we hear reports day in and day out of how many people are dying all the time. It is helping and aiding this propaganda effort until we understand, like, oh my God, potentially 100,000 people have been killed.
And then the same institutions can act like, why didn't someone know?
Why didn't someone do anything?
Yeah, exactly. Everyone was saying this from the beginning, and you were doing witch hunts against Ivy League professors, not clamping down on students enough. Yeah, exactly. I mean, people don't realize, and it's not stressed enough, given their prominence in politics. AIPAC was literally formed in the 50s because there was a massacre, Kibbutz, and Zionists realized, oh, this is going to be a PR problem. We need to start lobbying. That's why it was founded, and this has just continued for 75 years since.
It's also, I mean, I got into what I considered to be a discussion. Some people around me thought it was more of an argument in a certain social setting with someone who, a very smart guy, and has written not necessarily on Israel Palestine, but on some situations that are vaguely, whatever. A little bit of history. And we got into an argument about this, and it was suggested to me like, well, that was a lot of passion for that. It was like in the first couple of weeks of November, maybe late October. But it was so clear, and there were thousands dead at that point already, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Wait, what
but
was
it was
the
so
passion?
clear. I was the idea that like I still sort of feel like that person really should be more engaged in this way, and I'm surprised by it. My point being that it was obvious where this was going within a couple of weeks.
Yep.
After October 7th. I mean, within a couple of weeks, easy. And the only thing that for me personally that was unpredictable was the absolute ideological fealty that Joe Biden has to this project, the complete resistance to any political or moral feedback. I mean, really political, frankly. I mean, I don't really get terribly surprised by moral feedback, but Joe Biden's fealty to this project. I mean, how many times has Lloyd Austin, his defense secretary, got to come out and say, like, I don't think this is a good idea. Like, this is not, this doesn't, you want an argument that the deep state is not as all-consumingly powerful as you think it is? There's a lot of dissent. I mean, tomorrow you're going to be talking to a former State Department official. She just resigned. And I suspect that she's going to say there's a lot of people in the State Department who are very upset about this, and they're frustrated. I would imagine this is also the case with the Pentagon, although, people who are selling arms aren't probably that upset about it. But the military personnel who are responsible for bringing our people, U.S. military personnel, to go in and build this port and to put themselves out there, I think there's genuine concern that this could drag the U.S. into a conflict. I'm old enough, literally, I'm not saying that as a meme, to remember when 200, and I think it was 50 Marines got blown up in a barracks in Beirut. And because it was Reagan, he had the ability to leave and withstand it because he had, this narrative of like, maybe I think that's when he invaded the Falklands. Or what was it? No, not the Falklands. It was, it was like a tiny little place that was like an island. Shoot, what was the name of it? Grenada, exactly. In fact, if I remember correctly, Grenada happened within months of Lebanon. And, Biden still getting over the best thing that he did, which was pull us out of Afghanistan. So I think there is a significant amount of concern about our policy and where this leads amongst the deep state.